As I travel around the country and we talk to people about recruiting, what do you think the biggest problem we have is? Lack of knowledge of the organization. If I was going to sell a car, and I was a car salesman, I'm going to sell you a 7 Series BMW, and you came in to talk to me as the salesman, what would you expect me to know?
Everything about it.
Benefits and features of that vehicle. So when you come to somebody, or somebody approaches you from the Veterans of Foreign Wars, what should we be showing our potential members? Benefits and features. In order to do that, what do we need to know? Knowledge of the organization. One of the biggest downfalls we have as an organization is most members don't realize all the moving parts of the organization. How many people know that we handed out 93 $5,000 scholarships? Okay. Should be everybody should know that by now. It's been put out to the departments and the districts about 10 times over the last 6 weeks. That's my communication gap we got to figure out how to fix. Almost every single person that applied for the scholarship got it. So if you're going to your school and you're trying to build a relationship with an SVA or something, do you think that's a feature and a benefit the student would want? You think that would help you get in the door? Of course it will. Teamwork leads to success. You can't do it all yourself. Motivate, train, and the more people you have on the ground working for you, the easier the job is. Remember, many hands make light work. Not 20 guys can save Tennessee. Team effort. Enough said. Develop a team, and we'll talk about developing a team later. Remember the old saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail? How many of you guys know if you're going to qualify for the Washington, D.C. trip or not? How many know what the Washington, D.C. trip is? How many people know what the Kansas City trip is? Okay, you answered my question. Everybody else that didn't raise your hand hasn't downloaded the membership program, and they're 3 months behind on membership right now. Who has not seen the membership program? If the membership year starts on July 1st, when should we see the membership program? June 30th. Should I be standing in October in a department of leaders? And I'm getting ready to ask you what your plan is. What are you going to do to fix your post, district, or department? And 90% of you haven't even seen the membership program for the year. So that's going to tell me 90% of you don't have what? How are you going to task? And going back to the other one, you got to ask for what you want, right? The commander's going to tell you what he wants. The district's going to get the message. They're going to tell the post what they want. If nobody's read the membership program for the state or the national, then nobody has a plan that's going to be effective. Because you can't set realistic goals for your department, for your district, or your post if you don't know what the goals are. Is that correct? How many of you have been at a recruiting event? And the guy working the table is a old crusty Vietnam guy or Korea guy. And somebody walks by with his army cap on and he says, "Are you a member?" Why not? You should be. Fill that out.
Bad approach.
You've seen it. Worst thing you could do. Introduce yourself. Don't scare them off with, "Are you a member?" I don't know. Member of what? VFW. Well, guess what? A lot of people don't know what the VFW is. I called the commanding officer of the Reserve Center and said, "When's the last time the VFW came down to your Reserve Center?" You know what he said? "What's the VFW?" Well, that's not good, but if I come up and say, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Rick. I'm with the Veterans of Foreign Wars post just down the street, and I saw you had an Army hat on. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions?"
Great approach.
You just introduced yourself
And the organization.
He knows exactly who I'm with, who I am, and why I'm there. And what did I just do when I walked up to him? Why is that important?
Friendly.
When he accepted my handshake, he gave me permission to talk to him. If he wouldn't have shook my hand and stood off a little bit, he's not ready to talk to me. He reached out and took my hand and looked me in the eye and listened to me. He's receptive. He wants to hear what I got to say. It's my job to not talk him out of the VFW now. But introduce yourself. Tell them who you are, who you represent, the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And you can always go back to VFW. It's also known as the VFW if you want. But let them know who you're with and what you're doing there. But when you're talking about the Veterans of Foreign Wars and why it's important to be a member, what's the most important thing you can do when you're talking to somebody? Be enthusiastic. Have passion for the organization. If you don't have passion for the organization and you don't truly believe in the organization, what should you probably not be doing? Recruiting. I'm proud of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I think the tagline's perfect. No one does more for veterans. You watch that video we started off with today, there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of veterans whose lives are better today because the Veterans of Foreign Wars has done something to take care of them. Is that not true? So how can you not go out enthusiastic and proud of your organization and speak with passion when you're talking to somebody about the organization? Would you want your recruiter to be passionate about the organization as I'm selling it to you? Or do you want him to be the guy, are you a member? Be the guy that's proud of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. We talked about interviewing, the 4 steps of interviewing. If you ask a question, listen. First and most important, if you ask a question, listen and understand the answer. If you ask them a question, stop talking and listen. If you're going to talk to somebody, give them your attention. If you're talking to him and you asked him a question and he took his valuable time to answer it, and I'm doing, am I listening to him?
Nope.
No. When you're talking to somebody, put your phones in your pocket. If it rings, hit mute. If somebody's dying, they'll call you back. They'll leave you a message, hey, this is important. When you get a chance, call me back. But give me your undivided attention. Give her your undivided attention. When you're asking questions in an interview, remember the old rule. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. You should be listening twice as much as you talk. If you're asking questions and you're finding you hear yourself talking more than your potential member, you're doing something wrong. And listen for what they're saying. Actually listen to them. Because they're going to tell you what's important to them. And don't be distracted. No cell phones. No talking about yourself. When I approach somebody about joining the Veterans of Foreign Wars, is it always going to be positive? No. Where's my Vietnam vets? Right here? Sir, I'm Rick with the Veterans of Foreign Wars. How you doing today? I'd like to talk to you about the Veterans of Foreign Wars. Our post is right down the street. I saw you had a Marine t-shirt on.
Then we got total right there. Army.
Just an example, I had to guess.
Yeah.
Saw you had that Army t-shirt on. Are you interested in let me talk to you a little bit about the post? Not all Vietnam vets are going to say, oh yeah, let me hear it. How many have heard, well, when I came home, they didn't want me in the post.
Yeah.
Why should I join now? Are you going to get that? How do you answer it? Stay positive. Oh, I don't care what happened to you back then. 40 years ago, you need to join. That's not the right answer. Stay positive, because if you start getting in an argument with him and upsetting him, what's going to happen? You get a little PTSD, you're going to dot you in the eye.
If it was wrong, they're going to try to make it right with it.
Hey, sir, I understand it. You know, when you came back from Vietnam, maybe your post didn't invite you in like they should. I apologize on behalf of the VFW. There was a lot of posts that did invite veterans in. Unfortunately, yours didn't. But I know you're a man of leadership, and our post needs leadership. Wouldn't you like to come into a post to make sure that the Iraq, the Afghan, and the new veterans never go through what you went through? Positive. I need you to provide leadership so it don't happen to another generation of vets. You can learn from a bad experience. let them know that we need their leadership from back then to make this organization better so it never happens to a vet in the future. But don't get in an argument with them. If you upset somebody when you're talking to them, they're going to tell people. Kind of like when you're a salesman. If you have a really good sale, they might tell one person. If you get caught lying when you're selling a product, who do they tell?
Everybody.
It's the same thing when you're selling the organization. If they leave with a good taste in their mouth, they might tell their wife when they got home or their husband when they got home, or they might mention it to a buddy, hey, I might go check out the VFW post. But if I get into an argument with him because he's upset or misperceives the VFW, he's going to tell everyone he knows. So take the negative and try to spin it positive for him.